For years, Daniel Harper lived what looked like a perfectly ordinary life. A steady job, a modest house, and a wife who believed she knew everything about the man she married. But the truth about Daniel Harper was far more complicated than anyone realized, because inside the same city where he tucked his children into bed each night, another family was waiting for him. For nearly 8 years, Daniel managed to maintain 2 completely separate lives. 2 homes, 2 relationships, 2 sets of children who had no idea the other existed. And somehow, despite living in the same city, neither family ever crossed paths. No accidental encounters, no suspicious phone calls, no sudden revelations, but secrets like that don't stay hidden forever. Eventually, the smallest mistake can unravel even the most carefully constructed lies. And when Daniel's double life finally began to collapse, it didn't just destroy one family, it destroyed 2. How it all started: Daniel Harper wasn't always living a double life. In fact, the beginning of the story looked almost painfully normal. He met his first wife, Emily, in his mid-20s while working at a logistics company on the edge of the city. She was kind, patient, and believed Daniel was the type of man who would always choose honesty. Within 2 years, they were married, and shortly after that, their first child was born. From the outside, their life looked stable. Daniel worked long hours, Emily took care of the house, and their small family slowly grew. But long work hours can create distance in ways people rarely notice at first. Late nights at the office slowly turned into weekends away for business trips. Emily trusted him. After all, trust is the foundation every marriage quietly rests on, and Daniel understood that trust better than anyone, because it gave him the perfect cover. The truth was that Daniel's long work hours weren't always about work. Sometimes they were about someone else entirely, someone who lived only 15 minutes away from his real home. Someone who believed Daniel was single. Her name was Sophia, and without realizing it, she was about to become the second half of Daniel Harper's secret life. At first, it wasn't meant to be anything serious. Just dinners, conversations, and the kind of attention that makes people forget to ask difficult questions. But lies have a strange way of growing larger than the people telling them, and Daniel was about to learn that the hard way. Because within a year, Daniel wasn't just dating Sophia, he was building another family with her. And somehow, unbelievably, both families were living inside the same city. But what Daniel didn't realize was that maintaining 2 lives in one place required absolute perfection. And perfection is something no lie can sustain forever. Soon, the smallest cracks would begin to appear. And when they did, the truth would spread faster than anyone expected. At first, Daniel believed he could control the situation. After all, the 2 families lived in different parts of the city and followed completely different routines. Emily and the children lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood on the north side. Sophia's apartment was 15 minutes away in a busy district filled with restaurants and office buildings. To Daniel, the distance felt like protection. 2 separate worlds that would never collide. But maintaining 2 lives requires more than distance. It requires careful planning. Daniel started organizing his time like a military schedule. Weekdays belonged to one family, and carefully chosen evenings belonged to the other. He kept 2 phones, one for work and Emily, and one that Sophia believed was his only number. Daniel even memorized 2 different routines, 2 different versions of himself. With Emily, he was the tired husband who worked long hours, a man providing for his family. With Sophia, he was something entirely different, a man building a future with her, and for a long time it worked. Months passed, then years. Sophia eventually gave birth to a child of her own, a moment Daniel celebrated while knowing he was already a father somewhere else. Now there were 2 families depending on him, 2 homes that believed he belonged to them. And somehow, despite the risk growing larger every year, Daniel became more confident, because every month that passed without discovery made him feel invincible. Like the lie had become stronger than the truth. But lies don't fail because of big mistakes. They fail because of small ones, and the first crack appeared on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, a moment so small Daniel almost ignored it. Emily had called him unexpectedly, not unusual, but the timing was, because at that exact moment, Daniel wasn't at work. He was at Sophia's apartment, holding their newborn child. Daniel silenced the phone quickly, but the missed call left a strange feeling in his chest, because that was the moment he realized something dangerous. His 2 worlds were getting closer, closer than he ever intended, closer than he could control. And the longer the lie continued, the more fragile it became. Soon, the first real suspicion would appear, and once suspicion begins, it rarely stops, because someone was about to notice something strange, something Daniel had overlooked. And that small detail would begin the unraveling of Daniel Harper's entire life. For a long time, Emily never questioned Daniel's routine. Late nights and occasional business trips had slowly become part of their normal life. But small patterns have a way of revealing themselves over time, especially to someone who has spent years paying attention. Emily started noticing things she had ignored before. Phone calls that Daniel would suddenly take outside. Messages that appeared late at night and disappeared just as quickly. At first, she told herself it was nothing. People who trust deeply often resist their own doubts. But one evening, something unusual happened. Something Daniel didn't realize he had left behind. His second phone, the one Emily had never seen before. It started vibrating quietly on the table, a sound Emily didn't recognize. At first, she assumed it belonged to Daniel's work. But when she picked it up, something felt strange, because the phone wasn't locked, and the name on the screen wasn't someone she knew. The message was short, but it changed everything. Emily stared at the screen for several seconds, trying to understand what she was looking at. At first, her mind rejected the idea completely, because the implication was impossible. Daniel wouldn't do that. Daniel couldn't do that. But the more she looked at the message, the harder it became to ignore, because the message mentioned a baby she had never heard about, and the name Sophia appeared again. Multiple conversations stretching back months, dinner plans, late night conversations, and eventually pictures. Emily's heart began racing, because the man in the photo was unmistakably her husband, but the woman beside him wasn't her, and the baby definitely wasn't theirs. In that moment, the pieces began falling into place. Every late night, every sudden work trip, every unanswered call. It wasn't work, it was another life, and suddenly the truth became terrifyingly clear. Daniel Harper didn't just have an affair, he had another family, but Emily didn't confront him immediately. Instead, she did something far more dangerous. She started investigating. Because before destroying a lie that big, she wanted to understand exactly how deep it went. And what Emily would discover over the next few days was worse than she ever imagined. Emily didn't sleep much that night. Every message she had seen kept replaying in her mind. Daniel slept beside her, unaware that everything had already changed, unaware that his carefully constructed lie had finally been seen. The next morning, Emily acted exactly the same as she always had. Calm, quiet, patient, because people who uncover betrayal rarely react immediately. They observe first. Daniel kissed her goodbye before leaving for work, just like he had done thousands of times before. But this time, Emily watched more carefully. She watched the direction he drove, and the moment he disappeared from view, she began searching. The phone contained dozens of conversations. Enough clues to start building a map of Daniel's hidden life. Addresses appeared in messages, restaurants, parks, apartment buildings. Eventually, one location appeared more than the others, a small apartment complex in the center of the city. Emily stared at the address for several seconds. Then she grabbed her keys. She wasn't entirely sure what she expected to find, but she knew the truth was waiting there. The drive across the city felt strangely quiet, like the world outside had slowed down. When she arrived, the building looked completely ordinary, just another apartment block among hundreds. Children were playing outside, neighbors were walking their dogs. Everything looked normal, which somehow made it worse. Emily waited inside the car, watching the entrance. Minutes passed, then nearly an hour, and then she saw him, Daniel. He stepped out of his car and walked toward the building entrance. Completely unaware that someone was watching him, Emily felt her chest tighten, because this wasn't a coincidence anymore. This was confirmation, proof. But what happened next was something Daniel never expected, because Emily didn't leave. She kept watching, and 20 minutes later the apartment door opened. A woman stepped outside holding a baby, and Daniel followed behind her. They looked like a normal family, happy, comfortable. Emily felt something inside her break, because there was no denying it anymore. Daniel Harper didn't just have an affair, he had built an entirely separate life. And now, both of those lives were about to collide, because Emily had finally seen enough. And the confrontation that followed would destroy everything Daniel had built. Emily stepped out of the car slowly. The cool night air felt strangely sharp against her skin. Across the parking lot, Daniel was laughing quietly with Sophia. The baby rested peacefully in her arms. For a moment, Emily simply stood there, watching the life her husband had built without her. Daniel turned slightly while speaking to Sophia, and that was when he saw her. For a split second, nobody moved. Time seemed to stop completely. Sophia noticed the sudden change in Daniel's face. His expression had drained of all color. She slowly turned around and saw Emily walking toward them. The silence between them was unbearable, because deep down, everyone already understood what was happening. Emily stopped a few feet away. Her eyes moved from Daniel to Sophia to the baby. Then she looked back at her husband and asked a single question. How long? Daniel opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. Sophia looked back and forth between them, confusion quickly turning into fear. "Daniel," she said slowly. "Who is this?" Emily didn't wait for him to answer. Instead, she looked directly at Sophia. "I'm his wife." The words landed like a thunderclap. Sophia's entire body went still. Her eyes slowly moved toward Daniel, looking for an explanation, but the silence was already the answer, and Sophia understood immediately. The man she believed she loved had another family, and the man Emily had trusted for years had been living two lives. In the quiet parking lot that night, Daniel Harper's secret finally collapsed. But the real consequences of his deception were only beginning, because the truth doesn't just reveal itself, it spreads and destroys everything in its path. The parking lot remained silent for several seconds after the truth came out. No one seemed to know what to say next. Daniel finally tried to speak, but every explanation sounded empty before it even left his mouth. Sophia stepped backward slowly, holding the baby closer to her chest. Her mind was racing through every memory she had with Daniel, every conversation that suddenly felt like a lie. "You said you were single," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Emily stood quietly a few feet away, watching the second life Daniel had built collapse in real time. Daniel looked from one woman to the other, realizing there was no possible way to repair the damage. Years of deception had finally reached their end, and the truth was far heavier than any lie he had told. Sophia turned away from him first, walking slowly back toward the apartment building. She didn't yell, she didn't scream. Some betrayals are too heavy for anger. They leave behind something colder. Emily watched Sophia disappear inside the building. Then she turned toward Daniel one last time. There was nothing left to ask, nothing left to understand. Everything that needed to be said had already been revealed. Emily got back into her car without another word and drove away into the quiet city night. Daniel remained standing in the parking lot, alone for the first time in years. Because the two lives he spent years trying to balance had collapsed in a single night, the aftermath was brutal. Both families cut him out of their lives almost immediately. Friends eventually heard the story, and the truth spread quickly through their entire social circle. Daniel lost far more than he expected: trust, respect, family, because deception can survive for years, but once exposed, it rarely leaves anything standing. And the story of Daniel Harper became a quiet warning to everyone who heard it, a reminder that double lives always come with a price. Inside the archive of betrayals, his story became another entry, a story about deception, about trust broken beyond repair, because some betrayals are never forgotten, they are simply recorded and remembered.